It looks like Dogecoin and Dogecoin Foundation might be in trouble after what its head developer said today. So let's look at it. So here's what happened. We know that the Dogecoin Foundation recently received a whopping donation of 1 million Dogecoins from Dogecoin wallet developer called MyDoge. Now, MyDoge declared that the donation was made as part of the effort to make Doge the currency of the people, noting that this can only be achieved by implementing significant upgrades. But this also had some repercussions. People started saying that the foundation doesn't need any money and Dogecoin is largely self-sustainable now, but that is entirely false. And this is why Dogecoin's head developer Michai Luhman stepped in and said that when influencers say that the foundation has tons of funding lined up, or that we're building out infrastructure, and people believe that, it actually harms the Dogecoin Foundation because people who would otherwise be willing to help go, oh, they have it all taken care of. This bothers me because we're not actually a club full of rich people. Many of us still work day jobs to make ends meet, but still want to see Dogecoin proceed and succeed. Yes, we're trying to get sustaining funding in order to do some of the big ideas we want to pursue. A lot of what you read on social media in regard to this is completely made up for clicks and engagement. We still have a lot of hard work to do. Wish people wouldn't make it harder. Now, I hope you see where I'm getting at. She's really mad about how the Dogecoin community has been spreading misinformation. I wouldn't be too worried about it, but there's one reason that makes me a bit anxious. So, Ross Nickal, another core developer of the Dogecoin Foundation, announced that he is stepping away from Dogecoin as the head developer. He cited overwhelming stress as one of the major reasons behind it. Another thing that made him move away was the fact that his employer was moving into the blockchain space, which could stoke the risk of conflict of interest if he were to remain as director of the Dogecoin Foundation. And this is why I'm quite scared about the whole situation. Ross Nickal and Michai Luhman are the two most efficient developers that have worked on Dogecoin and made it the success that it is after 7 years. And so if Michai Luhman leaves after this, it'll be really problematic for the community and Dogecoin's growth. Now let's talk about Bitcoin for a minute. If we see this blue line, it indicated the places where Bitcoin was at 70% lesser than its ATH. And this only comes after a proper bull market. Now, Plan B tweeted that the last bull market was a bull market for ants, meaning that it was a pretty weak one. And this is why he thinks that in the next one we'll see a 100K for it before it hits a blue spot again. And there's some more data for Bitcoin published by Glassnode that we need to look at. This chart depicts that the volume of Bitcoin pumped into the exchange is less than the volume of the token that has left the exchange. This simply indicates that traders and organizations are willing to hold on to it despite the price fluctuations it has been witnessing in the last 3 months. Also, the report went on to show the data related to Purpose Data ETF holdings, representing a significant drop, indicating that major players could possibly be on the lookout to sell off their Bitcoin. And then this chart indicates that the outflow was extremely bearish in February, followed by some bullish movement in the form of inflow, only to lean toward a significant period of bearish movement. And then look at this. Wallets with holdings of more than 10 and 100 Bitcoins depicted a combination of bullish and bearish movements, with the movement inclining more toward the bullish side at the time of writing. Also, the number of addresses with Bitcoin holdings of more than 10 stands at an approximate number of 147K, whereas there are approximately 15.5K users with holdings of more than 100 Bitcoin. As per additional data from Glassnode, wallets with a holding of more than 1K Bitcoin showed a drastic spike in February 2022, followed by a sideways trend indicating that major players may have a newfound interest in holding onto their Bitcoin investments. The conclusion that we can take out from this is that things are still looking pretty bullish for Bitcoin in the long term. Now let's talk about some news about crypto adoption for a minute. Colombian app Rappi, which delivers food and other household items directly to customers, has announced that it'll accept crypto payments in the coming future. The delivery app's executives have announced that beginning in the first quarter of 2023, customers can use assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other digital tokens to pay for the firm's delivery services. If this works, executives say they will push Rappi's presence in the world of finance to the point that the company can become its own bank, which is tentatively being called Rappi Pay. And this is a big deal because Rappi is available to customers in Chile, Peru, Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, and boasts approximately 750,000 users. It has also provided people with more than 120,000 credit cards they can use to gain access to the company's services. So something like this is going to increase the adoption of cryptos in South America, and this is why I'm so excited about it. Now let's talk about ETF and its acceptance in the US for a minute. We talked about this yesterday as well, but there's some new data that's worth mentioning. So asset manager Grayscale has made a new appeal to the SEC to upgrade its Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. In a letter to the SEC dated April 18, Grayscale's legal counsel noted that the SEC recent approval of the so-called Teucrium Bitcoin Futures Fund provides a basis on which it should approve Grayscale's own spot-based ETF product as well. The letter said that, "We believe the Teucrium order confirms the fundamental point made in our November 29, 2021 letter in support of the above-referenced proposal. When it comes to approving ETP, there is no basis for treating spot Bitcoin products differently from Bitcoin futures products. And this is simply so unfair. We could even say that the SEC has double standards when it comes to ETF acceptance. Look at this. The US SEC has extended until 1 July the deadline to decide whether to approve Bitwise Bitcoin ETP Trust's listing on Nasdaq. And this is so discouraging because an ETF acceptance in the US is perhaps one of the only things that could turn the market upside down in no time." Let's also talk about some news that has been creating FUD in the market. So this week, a rumor has been circulating on social media that the MicroStrategy has been quietly selling its BTC. Now, this is bound to create FUD in the market because MicroStrategy is the world's largest publicly traded corporate owner of Bitcoin with over 125,000 Bitcoins in its pockets. And this claim of the company selling its Bitcoin is simply false. So MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor tweeted, reminding everyone that as a regulated company under the US SEC, MicroStrategy is required to disclose any material changes in corporate strategy to shareholders via SEC filings. And since we can't see any announcement made by them regarding this, we can conclude that this claim about them is totally false. Now let's come back to Bitcoin analysis for a minute. So we know that Bitcoin today fell to the low of 39.3K and it has been struggling to resume upward beyond this support. But on the upside, if the current support holds, Bitcoin will perhaps rebound. If this happens, it will result in the price breaking the initial resistance at the 42K high we saw for it. And right after that, the upward momentum and pressure will make it touch the 45K mark very soon. But if the sellers break below the current support of 39K, Bitcoin will continue to fall as it is in the bearish trend zone. The crypto will decline sharply to 37K and it could even reach a new low of 33K. So these are the levels that you need to keep in mind. Now let's look at another bearish analysis from one of the top players in the market. The former Goldman Sachs executive Raoul Pal said that potential downside in the stock market may threaten crypto prices in the coming months. He said that he's looking at the Nasdaq and says that from a technical analysis standpoint, the index is on the verge of potentially making lower lows if its critical support is broken. He then said that the failure of equities to hold has exposed risk of severe downside if the low is taken out, seeing energy stocks, oil commodities, etc. all in the red start to raise the risk of a full correlation of one accelerated panic. The only place to hide would be the dollar and probably bonds because everyone is short. And yes, crypto would get caught up too. So this is something that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. The bear market is going to be here until some big news comes in for Bitcoin, but since it's inevitable, I'm still bullish in the long run. Now let's come back to Dogecoin for a minute. It currently stands at around 13 cents and it's still in the red. Personally, I believe we'll get out of the consolidation phase by the end of this month. Do you think it's possible? Let me know in the comments section below.